So to dive right in to, and I'm interested in this moment in your life story where you switched from being healed to being healer. The moment where you felt empowered to give back. And how did you begin to negotiate which therapies, which systems, which methods? And that's
Right.
already a big question, but the part two is also and how to put them into conversation with Hasidut. How did you start parsing that out, putting Hasidut into conversation with what we could call broadly sort of alternative medicine or alternative therapies?
Right. So thank you so much. So first of all, I'm just gonna, my ear twitches when I hear the word healer because I've promised myself and I promised the Emuna energy community that we will stay away from using that word. And I know that is a word that we use in the world at large, and we are used to it and we're okay with it. It could be just my own little, shtick, what they say, that little something of mine that it just doesn't feel digestible within me. So I don't call myself a healer and I don't promote, the program in the format of us being healers, because at the end of the day there's only one healer, and that is Hashem, and I feel like he deserves the credit. So call it something minute, call it something minor, but for me it just sounds better to my ears. So I just, I wanted to just clarify that. So yeah, part of a big part of my journey is of course outlined in both of the books. The second book in particular, the turn around your emotions. um but we know that the whole idea of healing has to do with feeling broken, something that is dismantled, something that is broken off, something that it is not in its wholesome space and most purest form. So naturally, what happens when a person feels broken, when they feel um, that they're experiencing their illness, whether it's mental illness, spiritual illness, emotional illness, physical illness, and or all four of them many times, the thrust is, and this is divinely designed, is to get us into a mode of action to seek out that the wholesome self that we knew ourselves once to be. For the most part, most of us, I'm talking about for the most of us, we're born into this world and we're basically healthy from the get-go. And then at one point, something twists off. And Hashem, our God, in his infinite compassion and desire to seek out a relationship with us, sometimes that means getting us to recognize that even though we may not experience it um, readily in our lives on an everyday basis, that there's a broken part of our existence residing within what we feel is all fine and dandy. Hey, I wake up in the morning, everything's fine. In his attempt to make sure that we don't forget why we were sent down in human form into this world, he knocks on the door of consciousness and he reminds us. And many times it's a very stark reminder. As I like to put it, when you're sleeping and you got to get up. So what do? Everyone naturally put on, right, our alarm clock. And whoever invented the snooze button should be, held accountable for all the people who don't get up from that alarm clock. But we hit the snooze, and then again we hit the snooze. At one point, when you're really darn, annoyed with it, you just bang on the snooze, or you just shut the darn thing off. But at the end of the day, that's what Hashem does. I love the analogy of using the word ra, bad, brokenness, anything that feels not me, feels not in my comfort zone. Ra, everything bad, in what's defined as the word ra in Hebrew. Switch the letters around, it spells the word er, to be, or to become awake. And that's really what all bad things, right? Bad things happen, is to wake us up. Nobody likes to be woken up when they're really in their most comfortable under the sheets, comfy place. Nobody wants to be woken up. And so Hashem caresses us and says, here, honey, it's time to wake up. And you're like, snooze button. Okay, honey, starts pulling at the blankets. It's time to wake up. And you're like, and you go back to bed. And finally, strong enough as Hashem is, I always say Hashem created a stubborn-necked nation, but he is the father of the stubborn naked nation, right? Neck nation. So he knows what stubbornness is. He says, time to get up out of bed. And he yanks the blankets off. And then you're like, oh. And then you have to realize this new reality of, I got to get awake and I got to get something fixed. So I would say that for me, that stark reality of the bad becoming awakened happened when I became sick with my MS. I don't have the glorious, and I'm calling it stories of coming back to tshuva because someone, God forbid, died or fell sick, or I got sick, or something tragically happened, or someone, whatever. That's not the way I came back to tshuva. I actually came back to tshuva because I just felt like, what's the purpose? Like, that was my thing. Like, what is the purpose of life? Come on. Like, I was a caterer at the time, working 18-hour days. Like, come on, loading trucks. All right, fine. We did that. We done that. We catered for Governor Whitman. We did for Giuliani. Like, okay, so what else? And that's what brought me back. But really, my real wake up call was when I got my MS, and so that was my pivotal moment of coming back and realizing, okay, Hashem, you want something else in this relationship. So, of course, in the beginning was hitting my way through, like, this is my welcome home gift,
Yeah,
coming back into your arms, like, really? You couldn't have woken me up with a cup of cocoa and marshmallows?
totally.
But this
So
is, yeah.
I want to ask you specifically about energy work as a modality of healing. We won't say healers. I like
Okay.
that correction, but a modality of healing with Hashem and by Hashem. So the energy work, your reputation precedes you in the Orthodox world. You're very, very, very respected. And so I wanted to ask you, what was it like to bring energy healing into the Orthodox world? You have a number of haskamot from very respected rabbis. And so that's something where you really stood out on my radar when I was thinking about who to interview. And I wanted to ask you about, what challenges did you face working with Rabbanim, working to help people to understand that this is not a Voda Zara? If you could speak a little bit about that journey in regards to the energy work, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, boy. Okay. How long do we have? Okay.
As
Uh,
much as you can give. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
we're on
yeah.
your schedule today.
Yeah, thank you.
Whatever
Thank you.
piece
Yeah.
you want to share. I'm sure it's a big question, but maybe there's one story or anecdote of what that was like to get the Haskama for that work.
Right. Right. So I'll share that in the beginning. There was no Haskama. I really, let me go back a little bit, just minus zero to the question. Initially, really, I never would have in my wildest dreams thought that I would get into this type of work. I just want to make that very clear. Some people are born gifted. Some people are born intuitive. I have a lot of students who say, "Hey, you put a face to the images and the experiences that I've had since I was 3 years old." Like, what? Yeah, I've always been intuitive. I saw this, I would that, I this and that. And I really, like, Batalita Kulana, like, I'm not there. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I was a chef, a cook, a caterer. Like, I got my hands down and right and dirty. I was so gashmi. I was completely far off from the intuitive plane of existence. And, for me to even fathom being in this type of work, so I'm a very grounded individual till today. The program is extremely grounded. We, scratch our nose and eat chocolate cake while we're doing sessions. We don't fly off into, La La Land. And it's a very grounded program because I'm a very grounded individual and because I don't want to be, smoking on anything or taking anything or going into any different realms. Hashem wants us to be doing the work here in this physical existence. And we have to be in body when we're doing this work. That's how it makes a difference. So with that being said, I was really seeking and searching a lot of healing because of my MS. And like I said, really, my husband always says, if Hashem didn't give you the MS, you would not be writing the Daily Dose of Emuna, which is where it all really began. And that's really, he took me out of my catering, apron and chef's hat, and he threw me into the tichel and this garb, because I really was seeking out healing. And even though I'd come back to tshuva and I received, this MS after I'd already come back to tshuva, I recognized that there's something else that Hashem wants from me. And I've said this before on many platforms. I'm a truth seeker by birth, and God willing, after 120, I hope to pass on as a truth seeker. I can smell when something is not right. That I've always had, and I've never appreciated superficiality. So I don't want to have a superficial relationship with Hashem. I'm not in the business of opening up my siddur or my tefillah and just davening because I was told I had to. That's not, I don't want to just wear clothing because I'm told that's the way of the norm and that's what you have to do. And that fits perfectly into Hasidut because that's exactly the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov Kadosh says, Rahmana liba baye, where is your heart? You don't just start acting like a robot. If Hashem wanted a robot, he would have given us wings and we would have all been flying like angels. He did not give us any wings in our closet. We are human beings living a human experience. We have a logical mind, but we need to pierce through that and bring in the place, Mishkan Haritzonot, the place where your desires lie, and that is in your heart. And so you have to feel, you have to sense the truth, you have to feel the experience, you have to feel a palpable existence of godliness in your life. And so for me, you gave me MS, Hashem, like, what do you want from me? And I really did. I kept seeking and searching that. One of the stories that I said that I told it at the retreat, and I, would like to bring up here is, my first year after making Aliyah or Chazara, as a Toshevet Chozeret back to Israel 14 years ago, was I came to Israel quite depressed, 3 MS relapses a year, blowing up like a balloon from all this, Solomedrol infusions, walking with a walker. I was only 40 something years old at the time, and I was angry. I was angry at Hashem. I was angry at my life. I was distraught, depressed. Issues, kids bringing kids to a relatively new culture and no money to literally feed and make Shabbos. And I started attending classes after one of my neighbors, who, thank God, stubbornly did not leave me alone, to tell me, come to a class, come to a Emuna class, come to a Emuna class. And I went to this class, and week after week after week after week for one full year, I was sitting there in the back of the class in someone's home in Bet Shemesh, the annoying student saying, I have a question on Emuna, and crying with tissues and receiving the Rebbitzins' answers, and once again challenging her, saying, I don't believe that. I don't believe Hashem loves me. He gave me MS, made me go bankrupt, blah, 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 blah. And I just kept asking the questions. And every Monday, like a masochist, just kept coming in, waiting for those punches to be punched back at me. And I kept asking them and coming back and doing Hibbudah day in, day night, day in, day night. And really, after a long period of time, you realize you're standing in front of truth. You can't fight with that. And that led me on to a beautiful journey of finding, Rebbitzins and mentors to help me deepen this healing place of, then where did this all come? What does Hashem want from me? Again, I kept, like, you don't ask why, you ask, what do you want from me? That's what my question always is, Hashem. What do you want from me? What do you want me to do? Tell me. I'm here to serve you. I am your servant. I can't understand hints. Like, talk to me, tachlis, like, tell me, what do you want me to do? I'm here to serve you, but you can't make me serve you if I don't know what you want me to do. And with that pshita, with that simplicity, that's my relationship with Hashem. And so it led me from here to there to here. And I started undergoing this very intense spiritual energy therapy by a dear friend, Rebbitzin, who I'm in touch with till today. Her name is Rebbitzin Riva Steiner. She's in Yerushalayim. And I went through intense therapy, painstaking therapy with her. And after exploring a lot of my pain and my trauma, childhood, whatever you want to call it, and my feeling of isolation and alienation, basically my mainstream feeling of victimhood, of why me, boohoo me, like I'm, I really felt very victimized by life and very powerless. And I still go into those places. I'm not free from it. It's my default, but thank God I'm a little bit more tuned to the hearing of that, hard voice. And And I started, and I, when I went through all these months of therapy, and I recognized the intensity of what this was producing inside of me, a true new me, a light-filled me, a freer me, a true me, I can call it a true me. I asked her, I said, well, how did you learn this? And she basically directed me to, this bioorgonomy program. And I learned it and started practicing it.
Is this a religious program, or it's just a
It's not
tech?
a religious program. It's in Tel Aviv, taught in Tel Aviv, by Dr. Nova Gazit, bioorgonomy, energy therapy, or whatever. She calls it bioorgonomy.
Hmm.
And my life really was changed in those days in the program. I started, working with it. Now I wasn't too attuned to, because I had been recommended to do it from a Rebbitzin. I just assumed, and I have nothing bad to say about the program. It's 100% beautiful, but there were elements of Torah that were missing there for me. And I ended up just practicing it and doing therapy on it. And then it got so popular. I started getting so much work. I couldn't handle the overload, 8, 10 sessions a day. It was like, now you have to understand, this also meant for me a huge shift in, honestly, in my financial space, because I was getting paid. Before that, I was an Emuna mentor teacher. And now suddenly I'm getting paid to do sessions. It was like such a shift for me, that here I am, I'm feeling my healing. This is magnificent. And people are feeling a change in their own lives. So I was asking, people were asking me, like, can you teach us? We know about energy therapy. And one or two of my students actually at that time, and clients, actually threatened me and said to me, if you don't teach it, we're going to go and learn it somewhere else with a non-Jewish source. I
There's
said,
really a need.
uh-oh,
There was really a
uh-oh.
demand.
Right. Like, if you're practicing and you're a Rebbitzin, then why can't you teach us? So I felt very obligated, obviously, to go ahead and teach it. And I started really teaching it. But for the first year or two, there was no real haskama on the program. And then, of course, things started getting into question. Well, who are you do? Okay, Orit Esther has to know. So the mitnagdim, justifiably so, started coming my way. And I'm happy to say, from Hashem, that was a calling, that I need
Mm.
to take this program, and I need to now really bring it under microscope, and it's got to be checked out. It's
Mm.
got to be checked out, because I don't want any accountability after 120. I have an accountability for these students now. So I took it to, I asked around, honestly. I didn't know, like, who was the proper Rav that could give this the time of day. And my husband remembered that Rav Wozner, when we were in Muncie, that he was in contact with him. We went to see him. He's here in Bet Shemesh. We had multiple throughout a period of a couple of months, meetings, and I showed him, and I did some energy work even for him and the Rebbitzin, and came to certain conclusions. And there was things we had to shift out and sift in. And that's how we got the haskama. And even after his haskama, I'm not going to lie, and I'll even say to you, until today, don't think that it's not, thank God, not as much, for sure, not as much. And it really, I'm seeing my students getting haskamas from their local rabbis. So obviously, this is something that now the forefront has been, the foundation has been laid down. And for the most part, the question is, and here I'm getting to the answer after a long introduction of the question, the answer to the question is, most rabbis really want to see, does this really help, and how does it help? What does it do at the end of the day for the person? What is the client experience? And I can say to you, just from doing this for many years now, 5, 6, 7 years, a long time now, and thousands and tens of thousands of probably of clients and students who have worked also with their clients, I can honestly say that the common thread throughout all the clients is that somehow, some way, everyone seems to find their way back home to Hashem's arms. It's not what we're not naming the session, come back to Hashem. That's not our channeling of the energy. And yet, somehow, some way, when you start breaking away those blockages of traumas and fears, I call it, all healing is self-healing. It's the default. If we all have defaults, well, the default of what happens when you are willing to let go of those systems those ancestral patterns of thoughts, those stuck images and victimized, brain sets, your natural default is to just come back into your source and your oneness.
Beautiful. I have one final question, if you have just a couple more minutes.
Please, yeah.
Connected to the last one. So one thing that came up when I was sitting with the women at the retreat, of course, this is a group of women. They're very, very interested in energy work. They're very interested in gems. And this is a broader phenomenon that I'm finding in the Orthodox world. There's really a new openness. And I'm finding it also coming really from women who are really trying to take the initiative to do this kind of deep ancestral healing, and who also are interested in helping to serve as coaches for others. But something that came up in this particular group was that, well, my husband doesn't get it. Or my husband says that I'm into weird stuff now, or it's avodah zara, or I'm becoming a hippie, or I'm going to come back weird. And some women were even experiencing some real distress from husbands or also from children who were sort of making fun of them for engaging in these kinds of therapies. So I'm wondering if you could just speak a little bit about how, what would you say back to the world, or what would you say to women who are navigating that right now, women who are opening their hearts, who are trying out these new therapies that have now been koshered, we could say, but who might have to navigate some difficulties at home and some tension with spouses or family members who don't really understand what they're doing.
Right.
Any thoughts
Right.
on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. It's such a common phenomena in the Emuna energy world and community. And it's not just regarding the energy program, it's regarding all the programs that I teach, the conscious work that I teach, the meditation techniques, the healing, the Hasidic approach. Let's just first start with that, because the Emuna energy program is based on Hasidut. It's based on the fundamental approach of what Hasidut teaches us, and that is Hashem is found in everything, and that everything that we're dealing with, it's not the first time we've ever dealt with it, and it's all remnants left over from past lifetime, encounters that we've had, whether ourselves or our ancestors have had, all these broken times of consciousness when even people in the Holocaust who have experienced moments of breakage of like, where are you, God? You don't have to go as far as Holocaust. Our life, our generation, where are you in all this? How can this be good? All these moments where we've broken off from the truth of seeing God as the Tovel Meitiv, the good and the doer of good, the albeit good, downright tachlis good, and the will do good or ultimate good. And we all have these questions, and we all contemplate that. And yet we need to understand that we are invited as a gift to meet these broken places again in this lifetime, as an opportunity to correct, refine, and elevate those places that were broken off, from recognizing the truth of reality, and that is Hashem is good and does everything for the ultimate good. And until we don't meet those places, we haven't really ultimately reached why we're here in this world for 120 years. And Hashem is very patient. He gives us 120 years to try to come closer to that conclusion, which is very kind and infinitely compassionate on his behalf, especially because last time when we were here, we didn't get to that conclusion, the ultimate, and not us and not our ancestors. So at the end of the day, that whole concept of that we're one big consciousness, and what I carry is yours and what you carry is mine. And the whole concept and a big part of the energy program is actually fundamentally based on the Torah of mirrors, that whatever it is that I see coming at me is really a reflection of me. There is no outside world. All the world is one big school. Everything is happening in me. I am the chelek elokamima. I am the beholder of godliness. So whatever I'm seeing, Hashem is just grabbing my attention by tagging at my emotional strings. If I'm yanked and pulled and pushed towards something that I'm witnessing in my home or outside my home or anywhere in my life, I'm walking down the street and I hear something, I see something, someone, a stranger, someone I didn't even know, I never met, someone screaming at their kid, someone's walking without sneers, I don't know, all non-Jewish, whatever it is that I see, it's my life speaking at me from what I'm seeing. That whole concept is foreign to a lot of people walking on planet Earth right now. And so that concept of that I am one of the oneness is what the energy program is based on. So first we have to go back to recognizing and how amazing that we're doing this today on Chai Elul, right? The father of Saba Kadisha, the Baal Shem Tov Kadosh, or Shivat Yamin, the light of the 7 days, Rabbi Yisrael ben Rabbi Eliezer and Sarah. May his name and his holy presence protect us, and his Torah serve as the coming of the Mashiach and the Balatanya Kadosh as well on this beautiful birthday of theirs, of the two luminaries. The idea is that we have to recognize that we are just part and parcel of so much more that's going on in the world. And we've been there and we've done that, and we're all recycled. And we've all been here. We have lots of things that we have to correct. The energy program fits perfectly into this mindset, because the energy program teaches us that what we are carrying is not ours. There's a concept called N people. N people means that there are people in my family tree and my family line right here in front of me, as I can look, so to speak, at my family line in my current lifetime, and I could recognize and pick up intuitively through my higher self. We all have this intuition of our higher self, and that's also a brand new concept, where this Rahman Ali Babaye, where the Baal Shem Tov Kadosh teaches us, go inside your heart. Put Shiviti Hashem, put the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey in front of you. These are foreign concepts. These are the concepts we work with in the energy program. But so it's not just the energy, it's the consciousness of this deep, deep, deep internal work of going inside and saying, wait a minute, this has been a pattern in my life. I saw my mother do this. I heard my mother talking. Her grandmother did this. And through the energy work, coming and seeing those ties that, Aunt Sarah and Uncle Moishi, like everyone, we're all part of this consciousness of clearing to go back to the oneness that is a new, relatively new, but coming to be more and more acceptable consciousness that we're growing into. So with that being said, it is something that for us truth seekers, us deep thinkers, us intuitive beings, and everyone has intuition. Everyone could do this program. Everyone has intuition. Everyone makes decisions based on intuition. Nobody is 100% logical. We have a right and we have a left brain. No one thinks only from their left brain. Everyone thinks also from their right brain. And the right brain is the visual cortex. It is the intuitive place. It is the pop flash. Oh, I got an idea. Wow, let's build on it. Kind of, everyone thinks that way. Intuition is not a new concept, not to Judaism and not into the world. We all function from intuition of gut feelings. The question is, we haven't been trained to trust it, which is what we learn in the program. But because we're so afraid of going to those places that aren't, they don't fit to the mold. And Judaism, for many justifiable ways, I'm not going against. We need our halachas, we need our borders, we need our structures, we need our laws, we need our gderim, we need our fences, we need them, we do. And yet, even within the fence, there's a lot of freedom of being able to navigate my truthful channel to get to Hashem. And everybody has their way. For some people, it's Tehillim. For some people, it's Hitbodedut. For some people, it's just sitting down with a cup of coffee and talking to Hashem literally as a friend. Everybody has their way. Some people, it's just dancing with Hashem. Everybody's got their way. And we're so afraid to break open these boxes. We're so afraid to, as though, betray our tradition. But if you really go back to the tradition of Judaism, we know Yitzchak and Abraham, and this is where they met Hashem, in the Sadeh, in the field, talking to Hashem, feeling Hashem's presence, speaking from within them. Now, granted, we're not Abraham Avinu, we're not Yitzchak Avinu, and yet we all are their children. So we all have this place of feeling Hashem impalpable inside of me. Now, how do we deal with it, tachlis, in reality? We have to explain this to our family. We have to express to our family, what does it mean to be intuitive? What does it mean to feel certain things? What does it mean to trust your gut, even though everything feels that everything is checked, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, but you still don't feel something's right? What does it mean to go with that feeling? that has to be introduced into the Jewish world. And I was laughed at. Until today, my kids say to me that when their Rebbeim ask, "What's your mother do?" They say, "Oh, she's a Rebbe and she teaches Emuna." They leave out the whole experience of energy, many of them. Starting a little bit to, because they're older, they're not so afraid, but it is a new concept. And all I'm going to say to you is this: be patient with the family members, be patient. I always say the world is not 100% ready for us quite yet, for those of us who think differently and interact differently. And I dare everyone who has hesitation to try out the therapy. That's another thing I tell my students. Tell them, you're so not a believer, then let us do some work on you and let's see how you feel. And let's see what a difference it makes for you in your life. And then we'll talk about laughing. As I always say, the proof is in the pudding, right? Let's just see how it bakes off at the end.
Nice. Just a practical question.
Yeah.
Are men also allowed to take the energy training with you?
You
Okay.
betcha. You betcha. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have stopped doing one-on-one therapy with men, but we have plenty of male practitioners, including my son who does it. But training wise in a group, absolutely. The men are actually catching on very, very quickly. Thank you, Hashem. And I believe that as Hasidut becomes more and more well known, which, like I said, it really is part and parcel of the mindset and the hashkafa. 50% of the program is hashkafa, is learning what, in front of who are you doing all this work, and who is that real healer, Hashem, and giving it over to him. So as Hasidut becomes more and more, as we know, the Rebbe said, one of the will and testament of the conditions, so to speak, that the Rebbe received was when the well springs of your Torah will be spread in all four corners of the world. So as this keeps coming out before Mashiach comes, I do believe that the program will get more and more momentum, and it's, Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem, growing in leaps and bounds. It's all Or Emuna energy is. Thank you Hashem. Or Emuna.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This was wonderful. Thank you. I wish you a lot of hatzlacha. I'm so glad that I'll be able to, include you in my book project.